see what I'm doing. I am using Daniel Smith, a deep sap green, quinacridone and rose, quinacridone and burnt orange, I always want to say center, and this is a Rollion and cobalt blue. There's an exemption, I did use a little bit of Windsor blue to get some of my darker darks, okay? So I'm going to start in, and there's a lot of color in the iris. There's a lot of color in it. So the white on the little beards is the one place where you can really see distinctive white. But I'm going to work some light areas into my background. But I think we'll do that first. The background, then we'll do the flower, okay? So I've drawn some circles here. I don't know if you can see them because they're with pencil. And I'm going to paint around those because I want to leave some white paper there. So any place the paper's dry, the paint won't run, right? It won't flow, it won't blend. So we're going to leave a few little white areas poking through here because I want to show you another thing after we paint around them that we can do with them. I had another iris that was lighter pink on the top, but I couldn't find it. So you're getting this one tonight, okay? Now, if you see what I'm doing here, I'm going to break off right here. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go back here. It's easier to do an area that's kind of all connected. If your painting's too big, you might want to find a place where you can break off so that you don't run the risk of the paper drying before you get the paint on it. So I'm getting this pretty wet, as you can see. And I want to get a nice flowing background. That's as far as I'm going to go, okay? So then all I'm going to do is concentrate on the top half. Sometimes you put paint on. Should have worn my glasses. And sometimes you want to do a little lifting off if you want to lighten an area that way too. Okay. So since the flower's so purple, I like to use complementary colors, okay? So the complement of red, violet, and violet would be what? Yellow, green, and maybe blue, green. So maybe at the top, we'll use a little more of a greenish. I want this really light, really light. I'm just gonna start right here. Now you're gonna see it run. You see that running? But it's not going to go over those little spots that I left white because the paper's dry. You see that? You guys know this probably if you've done watercolor. But this is one of the really cool things about watercolor. And right here, I want this to be lighter yet, so I can add some more water and lighten that out. And just let it run down because I don't want it to run this way because I want this lighter area in the background next to my dark purple, and that's going to make it pop, okay? Hopefully, that's my plan. Now, as it comes down further, I'm going to add a little bit of green. A little bit of green. And once again, I'm going to kind of let it run. This looks like it got too dry here, so I'm just going to add a little more water. And we'll let that go. And I really like this beautiful burnt orange. So we're going to pop a little of this in, just so we get a nice, because there's some of this in the flower, okay? So you want to spread your color around a little bit. So let's get the top part done. Now this can run either way I want it. I can make it go any direction by how I tilt the paper and how, what color I put on, how it's going to blend. So, now over here I'm going to get darker yet. So let's get darker here and give a little more pizzazz. Now this is starting to dry already, so it's not going to flow as much. But what can I do if I want to make it flow some more, right? A little more water, kind of blend that together, let that fall down. You might even add just a little bit more here. I think that would look really good. All the time I want to keep in mind not only my shape, but my colors, because I want to balance it. If there's a dark here, I want a dark here, but I don't want anything in the flower or anything in the background to be as bright or dark as in the foreground, which is the flower. So I want it to come forward when you look at it, okay? Now down on the bottom, kind of go with the idea that I put a few dots of masking fluid down here. You probably can't see them, they're pretty small, just for break it up and kind of make it go with the top. Is that the bottom of my powder? Sometimes the pencil lines are so light, but you want them light so you can erase them. So that's why we use hard lead pencils. We're just going to phase this stem out. Maybe that would look better. Once again, coming all around here. Now, imagine there's all these leaves down here under this iris. But what happens when all the thick leaves come down closer to the ground? They usually are in shadow, a little more shadow. You see how that's running? It's not going onto the flower. You see that? Mm-hmm. But we might just, maybe we don't have to. I don't like it right on the point. Let's just get a little bit off. So all the time, you can keep moving it. Now I want to start back up with the same dark green right here. So this looks like it's part of my background, okay? I wouldn't want to start another color right where a petal or an area breaks off, okay? So we're just gonna come down here. As we come down, let's just fill this in a little bit more. And then we're going to start with some blue-green, which I don't think I finished mixing, sorry. And we're gonna dull it down by adding a little bit of the quinacridone rose. I have 2 containers of water. This never works, but I always swear this one's going to stay clean and this one's for red Sarah. By the time I get done, they'll both be so dirty, you will not believe it. I kind of lost my blue-green. I'm going to work on that for just a second. I'm in the wrong, yeah, I'm in the wrong blue, that's why. Okay, nice. Okay, let's get some blue-greens working in here. Now it's starting to dry a little more because I was talking and trying to find the right blue. So now, it's always a good idea to tie your colors together. So even though this is blue-green, there could be some of this really pretty burnt and maybe a little yellow green down here. You can do anything you want, okay? The main idea is I always want to keep my background balanced color-wise between lights and darks. This might be something interesting to do here. Whenever I do a painting from a photograph, I always make sure I know where my light source is coming from. So that if I start putting in some highlights and some shadows, they are going to be consistent throughout the painting. And this is really wet. But that's what makes it fun. And maybe just a little bit right here. Just all the time thinking and trying to balance it out. Right now I'm doing all negative space, okay? Which is okay. You can do it either way. You could paint your foreground flower first. I like to do it this way so that it's easier to do a really wet, washy background if I do this first, rather than having all these beautiful purples on here, which got a lot of color in them, and I come around here wetting this and they could bleed into it. So this is basically lighter, so now I think that might work. Let's try something else over here. I kind of want to do something here on the stem. I think this might look good. To lighten this. And just kind of let it float off in there. What do you think? You like that? Yes. So let's get some, not only some hard edges, but let's get some soft edges too. And that doesn't have to go anywhere. That doesn't have to. See, I kind of got, see some movement going up this way. See the lines, kind of in lines? It's kind of pulling it up to the flower. I like that. Right now, I like that. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center of the flower to give all of this a chance to dry. I forgot my hair dryer. I should have brought my hair dryer. Apologize for that. So I've got some lighter petals right in here. This would be a good place to work for a minute. The background's pretty wet. I love to do super wet. I love these beautiful, the way the colors will flow together. And there's one thing I forgot to show you. We talked about it, but I didn't do it. Maybe you might say, oh, I like this, but I wish it were lighter. So maybe you could, with a damp, clean brush, you can actually lift paint back off while it's wet. See that? I could do some shapes if I want. See how white it's getting? And the more I go over it, the lighter it gets. So you see, if I wanted a light area down here, maybe I already had it painted, I can't really go back and light it with paint, but I could possibly do it with this. I mean, I don't really know if I want that line there. I just wanted to show you that. Okay. Now, while that's wet, let's get that real light. It's kind of got a little yellow in it. It's kind of pinkish. And you have to remember, you probably know if you do watercolor, when the paper's wet, the paint's going to come out lighter than what you think, right? Because the water is diluting your paint on the paper. And that's really pale. I like that. Now I'm going to put in just a little bit, while this is really nice and wet, a little bit of, and let that flow. I think watercolors are perfect for flowers. And I think that's why, because you get these really nice, soft, smooth, kind of petally looking things. Let's lift that off. So you see, even though I mixed one pink and put some purple on, I can actually make it look like I used another mixture of paint by lightening some of that, pulling some of that off. See that? So now we have a really nice light center. Let's see, this might be dry enough. I think I can come up here. This is pretty light over here, so I think I'm going to do this. I'm wetting it again, just the area I want to paint. Just this little bit right here. This is lighter here. I try to wet it just one time. You don't want to keep brushing the paper. I think you know that. It'll, how many do watercolors? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So this is lighter here. Might get that lighter yet. Just add a little more water. Now that paper's dry on the background, so I can pretty well, it's going to stick up. Okay? Forget what I'm doing here. Put some of this yellow. It's red in here. This is so pretty. A little more color in here. When it gets down here, I want to make sure it doesn't get too crazy on me. But see, it should run just where the paper's wet. So then I'll get some nice, which way does that go? Okay, this goes this way. Might not have to do much to that. Oh, a little lifting. Sometimes if they don't, well, probably because I'm holding it this way. If I held it upside down, maybe this would blend better, but that's okay. Now, just a little bit. I want to do it while it's wet. Whoops. Not wet enough. This is a little bit of dark purple. Here. See, it's just blending right in there. and see, won't we? Because we can put a wash over top of it when it's dry, but it's got to be thoroughly dry, because you know it'll lift the paint up if you go over it too fast. Okay?
To do what?
If you want to put a wash over a watercolor, you have to wait until it's completely dry before you come in and try to put another layer on top, or it will pick that color up that's already on there, and it'll mix with the top one, and you won't get a pretty nice transparent wash. Last time I think I did a acrylic here, so I really, Amy suggested watercolor. It's a little harder to paint when you're over there and I'm up here because I can't see it. Usually you paint more flat. But this is kind of fun because we're getting all these neat runs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. So let's get a little more. So all of these reds, these quinacridone colors are so gorgeous. Beautiful transparency. I'm going to try to get as much dark on here as I can while it's wet. I can add a little more later. So now, I'm going to come down here. Just a second, I have a little spot of green. Let me get off. Now, down here is the white beard, okay, on this petal. So I'm going to, I just put a little bit of masking fluid on. So I'm going to put just a little paint kind of in between. It's always better to use very little masking fluid, okay? And you don't want it to show up that you use masking fluid. So it's just a necessity only if you've got maybe a really super fine line, ropes or masts on boats or something, or some real fine hairs on that little portrait over there. There's some masking fluid to get those fine white hairs. You see that?
Yeah.
You see that? So, but her dress, there's no masking fluid. So, try to limit it to just only as much as you need. So let's go back here and finish this before it dries. So there's just a couple stripes of masking. And then I'm just going to go ahead and wet this whole petal because I want all my colors just to flow. So it looks like all the colors from light to dark are all on one petal. This is the stem, that's the stem. It's kind of hard to see what's wet and what's not. But I guess I'll find out when the paint doesn't want to move. So I want to get that right away before it dries, right? So let's see how this is going to work. I can brush it, but it's also only going to run where it's wet. And I'm having a hard time seeing what I'm doing. Let's do just a little bit up here. I'm going to get heavier. Lots of paint. This kind of, nobody's going to know, right? If I have the exact amount of little veins. You guys won't tell later. Thank you so much. Now we get, I forgot what. Got the pink in here. Just a little bit of burnt sienna, or burnt, I still keep calling it quinacridone. Now, dark. Oops. Colors are separating. I think cobalt blue is good for doing that, isn't it? This is a little twist here. there's different ways that we can take this masking fluid off. You see my white dots? You see them?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the masking fluid is. So the paint won't stick to that. You can, some people just rub it with their hands when it's dry, but I don't like to do that because there's oil in our hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather use the Kneaded Eraser. This works really good. You just rub it and it'll just roll off of there. Okay. So what do you think of my petal? Looking all right?
Oh my goodness.
Let's go a little lighter over here. I didn't get all the shape in here. Hope it's not too dry. It's still flowing pretty on paper. Which is almost like, what, poster board or something, right? Have you ever used that?
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. Nice paper.
Your darkest dark there, is that your quinacridone violet?
It's quinacridone rose. It is cobalt blue. That's it. This peachy one up here, like right there, and some of this, that is same colors, but it's got just a little bit of yellow in it. Boy, that lifted right off. Look at that. It disappeared. It's amazing. The more the transparency to the paint, the easier it is going to be to lift it off. Okay? You won't be able to do this with staining or opaque watercolor. The transparency is what makes it lift off. The red-handled brushes are Scepter Gold. I don't know what this one is. I think it's Robert Simmons. This is a Mimic, which is kind of neat. It mimics a natural hair brush, and it works great. It holds water, it holds paint. I really like the little things. They got them in all sizes now.
Where?
Color. Wait a minute. Something.
That's
Creative Mark. Creative Mark. But I got that out of the catalog for Jerry's. Okay, we got one more petal. What do you think of the light on the beard?
Like it.
You like that? But we can also, I can take a damp brush and look at that. See how I would lift that off?
Mm-hmm.
Each time I go over it, because the dampness softens the paint, right? So you can, this is getting pretty dry, so it's going to take a couple times to go over it to do that. But see? All the way down. I could do more. I should have done that when it was wetter. Sorry. See what you can do?
Mm-hmm.
So I won't get back to total white, but I can lighten it. See that? This orange back here is really neat. I've got masking fluid there, so this will be pinkish when I get done because it's in kind of a shadow. Let's go over here. Come up here. I'm going to kind of do this the same way. A little more masking fluid on this side. Road run. Go back, kind of like the petal. And you know, you don't have to have every petal outlined with a sharp edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll just kind of let this one go crazy. Might be dry enough to do that. Let's try it. Let's just get this wet on the top. finish one of this. All right. Let's see what happens. A little more of this right down here, up in here. Pink. Yeah, we got enough masking fluid there, we don't have to worry about that side. But then, just kind of saw it back and forth and kind of get some lights going. Down, down, down. This is a lot darker. Maybe. Let's see what happens down here. Okay, a little purple. Ooh. Ooh. Kind of fun. I like it over that blue-green. That's very beautiful. But look there. It's there, but yet it isn't, okay? All right. Under here, we're going to put a little more rust and some dark purple. Rust. I think I'll do him the same way. What do you think? Let's put some yellow green in there. That will bring your eye back up to the top colors, hopefully. Even though this is a light color, look how dark it makes it down here. I just want to take that down. I don't want to, I kind of cut it off. I shouldn't have done that. Let's just see if we can, I don't know what I'm going to do with that now. I kind of messed that up, didn't I?
You're going to lift it.
Hmm?
You're going to lift it.
And what?
You're going to lift it.
I don't know. Think I can?
Maybe.
Now, right down in here, we're going to get real dark. Super dark. And dull. So, even though we can always come back and add a little more.
How many dancers do you normally do on a painting?
How many what? What?
Layers.
How many times will you know, top it off or whatever,
Will I top it off?
whatever you wanna call it?
I'm not sure what you mean.
How many times we go back over the same thing?
Oh, you can do it a lot of times if you want. You know, I can keep going over it now while it's wet, but when it starts drying, that's when you stop. But then when it's thoroughly dry, you can come back over it again and add more. Okay? You can either do another wash real thin with color, or you can do dry brush. I think that's going the wrong way. There's a lot of I'll show you some washes in a minute, okay? Make it a little darker in here. I want to get this done while it's wet. Let's get some of that going. So, you see how your eye goes to where those dark areas are? Because you have contrast, right? So let's just cut some more of these little things in while this is wet. See, it comes off pretty easy, but you want to make sure your brush is rinsed and just damp. Just damp. Okay? Let's maybe, I still need to do something else here. Excuse me, I'll do this real quick while it's wet. And we're gonna do a wash. I'll do it on another painting though, because this isn't gonna be dry enough. All right? Sometimes if it is partway dry and you go back over it and you lift color that you didn't want to lift, it'll start looking kind of muddy, and you don't want that either. Just gonna add this back petal like that. Take it all the way off. Okay, let me show you something. Where's that? Do you have that scrap paper?
It's right here.
I'll show you how to put a wash over top of that. And that's pretty neat. I do this one. So I've got kind of the same colors as what I've used here. Okay? Now, of course I could make any color on here more intense by just putting another wash of the same color on. So let's see what happens when we do that. I can put this on and it gets darker. I can put it over green when red dulls green, right? So look what happens when I put it over the green. You can soften it and pull it out. You can use get a bigger brush. But you want it pretty thin. You don't want it thin all of this yet. You want it pretty thin. So see this bright green right here? Watch out. Look how pretty that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can see the undercolor. And it's bone dry, so this top coat isn't going to mess it up. You can take, it's pretty thin, and we can go, that's wet, let's go over here. This is kind of a blue-green. Watch what happens when I hit the side of the petal. Look at this. Watch it just do all these different colors. You can do all kinds of things. You can dull a color. Whoops, that's too thick. You can brighten a color. This is kind of neat to do if you're doing a landscape. A lot of you do landscapes. You want to dull down maybe your background, tree line, even your sky. But use a big brush and you just put it on and you pretty well let it go. You can't work it because what's happening is that's softening that undercolor. Watch this. Look at that. It softens the paint. They're always water soluble, so it waters it. It'll lift that undercolor too. But this is a fun to do. But just take a pretty good sized brush and make just scrap paper's wonderful because you can play with it. You can see different things, see different color combinations you can come up with. Look at that. That's a little too thick. But look how cool that is. It can help you tie an area into another area. You know, maybe you think, oh, look what I've done. I'm done. I've got all this red down in this corner. Doesn't go with my background. Get a wash of the color you used over here on the red and get some of this going. You can move it around. You could put it on. Let's put some on. That'd be kind of neat up there. Let's see what happens. This is the part, though, that I've got some of these white dots. I'm going to have to be careful. Look what happens when that goes over that yellow-green. Isn't that pretty? And what does it do? It's tying it together. See? But you want to make sure you get those edges off, too, so that you don't really see. You don't really want to see where you start and stop. Okay?
Yes, very nice. Great.
What else was it I going to show you? I can't remember now.
What did you cover that foam core board with? What's the glue?
That was on there. It's almost like it was like a film of plastic.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it's off of here because it gradually taping, it would lift it off, but it was a thin coating of plastic. This is what they use for insulation on houses.
That's
And it's great.
Yeah.
Larry brought me home a big sheet, and I got a big one, and then this one, and then one for that'll fit a quarter sheet of watercolor. And I've used them for years. And they're great if you paint outdoors. They're featherweight. You know, they don't add any weight to your backpack or whatever you have. Oh, I want to show you something. I'm not going to be able to take this off. I don't think. Maybe down here, because it needs to be pretty dry. Let's take one of these off. And you'll just get back to white paper. You see that? Back to white paper. And you could let it like that, but they look kind of stark, I think. So maybe it might be neat. We can add a little color to them. Put a little. Look how pretty that is. You could do any color you want. You can make them purple. You could do anything. Up here they're lighter, but there's not masking fluid on them. So maybe we'll use some of this. And this is no masking fluid. Of course, it's kind of wet too, but I'm going to put some little dots up here. Just dot, dot, dot. But then I want to soften the edges, so I just take a damp brush, soften the edges. Then when this is dry, I'll erase the pencil marks. Just fun stuff to make it a little more interesting. And if you want, you could outline them. You can do anything you want. This is pretty wet. I'll show you a couple of things. This, I wanted to show you this one because this had a ton of masking fluid on it, okay? All of this was masking fluid. See, oh my gosh, it took me forever. I got carried away, but I thought it was effective because it was all these weeds growing up over this old track. So then I did the whole painting, and then I came back and with the eraser rubbed off all the masking fluid. Then I came back and painted them again.
Oh, wow.
Crazy, huh? But you could, this was
Beautiful,
all,
though.
where I took the masking off was all solid white. Well, you wouldn't want to leave that, right? So I added some color here and there.
Gorgeous.
But that's a ton of masking fluid. Oh, I know something else to show you. This is cool too. Sometimes, if you get too much masking fluid, I did it on there, like this shape. Maybe I had a glunky blob. If you've used masking fluid, you know
Right,
it's hard
right.
to get a fine line. And maybe I had a glob, maybe here or there or something. You could take a damp brush and, let me show you this. Okay, for example, see this right here? That's kind of glunky. You see that shape? You see how nasty that looks? I could take a damp brush and I could soften that and lift it. And of course, different colors are going to lift some easier than others. This looks like it's, you know what I used? I forgot. This is sap green. They call it permanent sap green. That's why. I think it's permanent. I forgot that. That's not a good area to show you. Let's do, well, let's just do here. Let's just do this. This is dry. There's masking. Okay, hold on. Let's get that off. I'll show you better. I'll show you. It's not bone dry, but we can do it. So, perhaps if I have, okay, maybe he's a little too much right there, but I could take this and I can soften that, and it's kind of like I'm pulling the pink back up onto the white, and I can soften that edge. This one's not moving very good for me either. I usually use permanent rose, and maybe this is more permanent. This is quinacridone. Something to think about, huh? But sometimes you can get rid of the white. You can put more color back on. Or, I'm sorry, Amy, I'm getting a little crazy here.
I'll go crazy.
It's great. Let me get this piece off. So this is kind of in shadow over here.
What's your design?
I took the white off, but I can come back in and paint those little things, whatever you call these little things. So- And that's what I did on those weeds. You know, I had the white. This is kind of shadowy area up in here anyway. Let's get some more tops on. See? Okay? So there's a lot of different things you can do. The masking fluid can be a great aid to you, but we want to limit it. Now, right now, I'm looking at this and I can say, boy, she used a lot of masking fluid, because you can tell I did. So this is one of those times I would pull more color back into it. If I have a very flat, about a quarter, half-inch brush, and it's damp, and you get that line going, and you can lift color off, or you can pull it back in. The stars on this one, I used masking fluid. I used masking fluid on these real fine little stems, okay? There's no masking fluid on the flag, okay? I just saved the white paper, marked off my stripes, and then I started making it look like paint coming off, but I was actually putting a little red on white paper, okay?
Did you use any ink?
I haven't. In fact, I just bought some. I've got a bottle of red, yellow, blue, and a green. Do you do that?
I got some, I haven't used it.
You haven't used it? I'm dying to use it. I don't know quite what I'm gonna do with it, or how I'm gonna use it, but I'm gonna try it, so.
I found a book that had that procedure in there, ink and watercolor.
So the ink's probably
They use ink
permanent.
basically for lines.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Line lines.
Because I'm thinking it's not, I think it's gonna be like permanent sap green. It's not gonna budge once you get it on there, if it's ink. Have you tried it, Judy? Have you tried?
Yes,
And
yes.
does it do that? It doesn't?
Well, I like to have the ink lines. I like the drawing to show.
Mm-hmm, but yeah, you
So-
do. So I guess for that, it'd add emphasis if you wanted to not just outline it, but get a darker area. I'm gonna try it, because I'm gonna see if I can do it like watercolor.
I think there's
Put
some
the
water,
ink on and see if you can pull it over.
there's water soluble inks.
I don't know what I've got. I just thought it looked cool.
Anybody have any more questions for Linda?
Can I
don't see how you get the perfect stars with masking tape. You just
I
use it.
drew them with pencil first. I drew them with pencil.
I mean, a
The
perfect-
painting is bigger than this. This is a print. The painting is about, I don't know, like this. So the stars, I guess, maybe are this big.
So how do you get the sharp edges with it? I always have trouble
It's
getting
so perfect.
any
Well,
kind of,
That's
it
hard.
usually globs up, it
That's
globs
hard.
up on me.
But that's another thing. If I didn't, you could come back with some blue
That's what I wondered.
and sharpen your sides
Oh,
of your
yeah,
stars. You know, you can do that too. 'Cause you can, that watercolor's gonna move. You can push it around, and even after it's dry, you can make it move. That's why I try to use transparent colors. I just cannot believe I picked up permanent sap green. I guess I was in a hurry. But I've also found that, that quinacridone rose, isn't that what it is? Quinacridone. It's not transparent. Yeah, quinacridone rose doesn't move like Winsor Newton.
It's not
Permanent
transparent?
rose.
Really?
I'm thinking it isn't.
Huh.
Or it could be transparent, but it's staining. See, there's another thing there. There's some colors stain, and they will not budge. Permanent sap green. It's not gonna go anywhere. Yeah. So now when I get this all finished and bone dry, I'll take all the rest of this off, do a little more playing around down here, but I will put more color back up into there because I have too much masking fluid and it doesn't look good. When you do use masking fluid, you don't want it to show when you're finished. You really don't want it to show. The Clydesdale, I'm trying to think, I'll let it go. The only places I used masking fluid were on here, on these little things, and on these rings. I didn't use it here. I'm trying to discipline myself, I did it right there, on those rings. I'm trying to get away, I'm trying to control my painting and trying not to use as much masking fluid.
Is that a print?
This is a print, yes. These are all prints.
How do you get your prints?
I make them. Remember I mentioned that John Younger had an Epson printer for sale?
Yes.
If you want a good printer, Epson's the best. They're absolutely fabulous. The one I've got prints 13 inches wide and 19 inches long is the paper I've got. But if you mat that, it ends up like an 18 by 24, which is a good size, 18 inches.
How do you get your picture?
I photograph them. I photograph my painting.
Okay, what kind of camera do you use? SLR?
Well, I tell you what, I've been using a little, what kind is it?
Point and shoot?
No, it's a little Canon something.
It's a Canon
And it doesn't even have that many pixels anymore. It's an older camera. And I was tickled to death when I got it, but I can get up to 3,000 pixels wide on an image. I can get up to 300 resolution. I've got a great big old thing. I bought this big lens. I can't even hold it up anymore.
Yeah.
You can use tripod with it. It's digital, 35 millimeter. It takes great pictures, but to drag that thing around, right? If I need to zoom in on something, that works better because the little one doesn't seem to do that as well.
What kind of lighting?
Stuff in my basement. I don't know. Just plain old light bulbs. Plain old light bulbs. Turn the flash off. Turn the flash off. Turn the flash off, and you'll get the best. I get the image. It comes out. Looks like my. Sometimes when I load it onto my computer, maybe it comes out a little faded or not as rich as the original. So then I'll hit
Color
brightness.
corrector.
Yeah, enhance, but there's
Autocorrect.
brightness and, what do you call it, contrast. And I'll just increase the contrast a little bit. As soon as it looks like my original, I stop. Other than that, all I do is crop. I'll crop, because my watercolors are taped on a board, so when I photograph them, they're like this. So then when I get them on the computer, I crop the edges off, That's about all I do. So it's fun.
Is the
Because I
camera,
don't know how to use Photoshop. I can't do all that.
is the camera autofocus or you focusing?
You can use it either way.
Okay.
Both of my cameras you can use manually or
Single
auto.
lens reflex?
What?
Single, that's when you look to the left.
That's the big one.
The small one's not that way, it's direct.
Uh-huh,
You look through the top?
uh-huh,
Okay.
uh-huh. It's got a little, on the back of the camera, it's got a little flap you pull out and you can see what you're shooting.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to square it up, I can see it in there better.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out the slightest little difference on the edge. Maybe you don't have it square in the viewfinder exactly right. So maybe this side looks like there's an angle. So by the time you line up this side, you're really cutting off a lot of your painting. So you want to get it just as darn close as you can, And I don't know how to do that cropping tool where you can straighten it. If you get I know I'm not good with this stuff. I'm better off just painting. But yeah, it's practice, I guess. So, is there anything else I can?
Yeah, what kind of paint do you prefer?
I usually use Winsor Newton. That's what these two big ones are. I do like Daniel Smith, but I think I'm going to go back to the Winsor Newton permanent rose. This is the first time I've used this one, and I'm seeing a big difference. The permanent rose in colors I think is good, but if it's not a stain, that's what I would want, because I could do some.
I think that Winsor Newton acrylics, it's kind of hard to get the caps off of.
Oh, yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you don't have a problem with the watercolors, do you?
No, I just drop them in here and soak a little bit, and then usually paper towel, and I get them open.
One
So
here,
it
a good
softens.
hint for getting caps on that are stuck. If you carry rubber bands around with you and wrap a rubber band around the lid, it'll help you get your cap off.
Or run hot water over it, and hold a match under it. Because that'll soften it, the heat will soften it.
Those are pretty colors.
You like those?
Yeah.
They're bright. They're very bright. This looks like lemon yellow. I don't think I have this too.
Any other questions for Linda?
Anything else I can help you with, maybe?
Any final thoughts, Linda? The amazing Linda WIlmes. Thank you very much.
Focused in North St. Louis County, Northside Art Association is a nonprofit 501c3 arts organization that serves local artists through community exposure, networking, education, and peer interaction. Learn more about Northside Art Association at www.northsideartassociation.org.